Seduction and Secret Episode 2 Chapter 6. A weekend of love the night had been nothing short of magic. Wrapped in silk sheets, Sophia and Eric lay tangled in each other's arms, their bodies still warm from the passion they had shared. Sophia slept peacefully, her soft breaths rising and falling against Eric's chest. The golden morning light streamed through the curtains, casting a gentle glow over her relaxed face. Eric watched her for a moment, a small smile playing on his lips. She looked beautiful, vulnerable, yet confident even in her sleep. Carefully, he slipped out of bed, tucking the covers around her before heading to the kitchen. A few minutes later, the scent of freshly brewed coffee and warm toast filled the air. Eric had prepared a simple but thoughtful breakfast: scrambled eggs, toast with avocado, fresh fruit, and a side of orange juice. He arranged everything on a tray before carrying it back to the bedroom. Gently, he leaned down and pressed a soft kiss on Sophia's lips. "Good morning, beautiful," he murmured against her skin. Sophia stirred, her eyes fluttering open. The moment she saw him and the tray in his hands, a smile spread across her face. "You made me breakfast?" she asked, sitting up and pushing her hair back. Eric smirked. "Of course. I told you you're my baby. Let me take good care of you." She let out a dreamy sigh. "You're too sweet. I love you so much. I feel like I'm dreaming right now." Eric chuckled, sitting beside her. "Then let me make this dream even better." He picked up a piece of toast and held it to her lips. She took a bite, moaning softly as she chewed. This is perfect." They ate together, feeding each other small bites between kisses. Sophia playfully smeared a bit of jam on his lips, giggling as Eric licked it off. "You're trouble," he teased, pulling her closer. She smirked. "And you love it." He did. More than he expected. The weekend they didn't want to end, Eric stayed the entire weekend. They spent the days wrapped in each other, watching movies, drinking wine, and indulging in endless laughter. Sophia felt younger, freer, like she was experiencing love for the first time again. By Sunday evening, reality crept in. Eric stood by the door, suitcase in hand. Sophia crossed her arms, pouting slightly. "Do you really have to go?" He sighed, brushing a hand through her hair. "I wish I could stay, but work is waiting." She sighed dramatically. "I knew this moment would come. But I don't like it." Eric chuckled. "Don't worry. I'll be back before you even have time to miss me." She lifted an eyebrow. "I already miss you." His heart gave a small, unexpected squeeze. Without another word, he cupped her face and kissed her deeply, making her feel every bit of the passion he had for her. When they finally pulled apart, she smiled. "That's the kind of goodbye I like." He winked. "Then expect the same when I return." Sophia drove him to the train station, her hand resting on his thigh the entire ride. When they reached the platform, she lingered, not wanting to say goodbye. As the train doors opened, Eric leaned in, brushing one last kiss against her lips. "Take care of yourself, okay?" he whispered. "You too," she said softly. He gave her one last smirk before stepping onto the train. As the doors closed, Sophia stood there, watching until he disappeared from sight. She had never expected to fall this hard. And now, she wasn't sure she could stop. Chapter 7. The calm before the storm, Eric stepped into his apartment, shutting the door behind him with a deep sigh. The weekend had been perfect. Sophia had given him everything he could ever want: passion, luxury, and a feeling of complete indulgence. But now reality was waiting. He pulled out his phone and switched off flight mode. Immediately, his screen lit up with a flood of notifications. 17 missed calls, 10 new voice messages, countless unread texts. His heart pounded as names popped up: Tasha, his sister, his best friend, his colleague. Eric exhaled sharply, rubbing his temples. Damn. Instead of listening to the messages, he simply put the phone back on flight mode and tossed it onto the couch. "It's already evening," he muttered to himself. "Tomorrow, I'll come up with something." Right now, all he wanted was to hold on to the feeling of Sophia. He grabbed his phone again, this time opening his chat with Sophia. "Eric, hey baby. I just got home. I had the best time with you this weekend. I miss you already. Wish I could be by your side right now." He smirked to himself before adding another message. "Eric, I have to go see my mom, though. Not sure when I'll be back." If I don't text tonight, I'll call you tomorrow, my love. Sophia sighed. Sophia had just finished grocery shopping and was sliding into the driver's seat of her luxury car when her phone vibrated. She glanced at the screen, and the moment she saw Eric's name, a smile spread across her face. She read his message slowly, taking in every word. He missed her. He wished he could be by her side. Her heart fluttered. Biting her lip, she quickly typed a response. Sophia, okay, my love. Take care of your mom. I already miss you too. She stared at the screen for a moment before pressing send, her fingers lingering over the keyboard. She wanted to tell him how deeply she felt for him, but she held back. For now, with a small, dreamy sigh, she put her phone aside and started the car. As she pulled out of the parking lot, all she could think about was him. Chapter 8. The perfect cover-up. The following morning, Eric arrived at the office, feeling the weight of the previous weekend still lingering on him. He had spent 2 unforgettable days wrapped up in Sophia's world, one of luxury, passion, and the thrill of secrecy. But now he had to step back into his real life. As he set his laptop on his desk in the open-plan office, adjusting the screen, a familiar voice interrupted him. Are you even alive, man? Eric looked up to see Martin, his colleague and closest friend, standing over him. His brows furrowed. What do you mean, if I'm alive? Eric asked, confused. Martin crossed his arms, giving him a skeptical look. Bro, you disappeared all weekend. No calls, no texts. Your girlfriend, your sister, everyone was worried about you. Eric forced a tired sigh, trying to appear as natural as possible. Yeah, man. I wasn't feeling too good. Just needed some rest. Martin studied him for a second, then his eyes flickered to Eric's face. Wait, what happened to your nose? Eric blinked. Shit. He had forgotten about the small bandage he had placed over the side of his nose, just in case he needed a visual excuse. Before he could answer, Martin gasped. Dude, don't tell me you got into a fight. Eric chuckled, shaking his head. Nah, man. I was involved in an accident. Some reckless motorbike hit me, and I blacked out for a while. I was lucky to survive. Martin's expression turned serious. Damn, bro. That's crazy. But why didn't you call someone? Your girlfriend? Your sister? They were both losing their minds. Just as he finished speaking, Martin's gaze shifted toward the office entrance. His eyes widened slightly. Speaking of which, Tasha is here. Eric's stomach twisted. Shit. He quickly turned, and sure enough, there was Tasha, walking into the office, her face full of worry. Not here, not in front of everyone. Eric shot up from his chair and rushed toward her before she could get too close. Let's go outside, baby, he said quickly, grabbing her hand. Tasha frowned. Eric, what's... Come, he insisted. Other employees, just arriving at work, glanced at them curiously as Eric led her outside. Outside the office, as soon as they were away from prying eyes, Tasha's gaze fell on the bandage on his nose. Her eyes widened. What happened to you? Eric let out a deep sigh, rubbing the back of his neck as if the memory was painful. Time to put on his best act. I was hit by a motorbike, he said, his voice laced with exhaustion. I fainted. I only started getting myself back together yesterday. That's why I couldn't reach you. Tasha's face softened with concern. Oh my God, baby. But why didn't the hospital call someone? Your sister, a friend? How could they just leave you unconscious for so long without any of your family around? Eric sighed again, shaking his head. Honey, don't worry about that. The important thing is that I'm alive. Just be happy that I'm okay. Tasha exhaled, still looking uncertain, but she let it go. She reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. I was so scared when I couldn't reach you, Eric. And to make things worse, I had a terrible week. Eric frowned, keeping his concerned boyfriend act intact. What happened? She sighed, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. I had these awful stomach pains. I thought something was wrong with the baby. I had to call the hospital myself because you weren't answering. Eric's chest tightened. He felt a small pang of guilt, but only for a moment. And he asked, Is everything okay now? Yeah, she nodded. The doctor said it was stress-related, but I have to be careful. I really needed you this weekend, Eric. He cupped her cheek, giving her his most reassuring look. I'm so sorry, baby. If I could turn back time, I would have been there. But I'm here now, okay? Tasha nodded slowly, her eyes softening again. After a moment, she sighed and leaned in, pressing a soft kiss on his lips. Eric kissed her back, making sure to hold her like she was the most important thing in the world. Just take care of yourself, okay? She murmured. I will, he promised. With one last hug, Tasha pulled away and left. As soon as she was gone, Eric ran a hand over his face and took a deep breath. He had dodged another bullet. Now, it was time to get back to work. Chapter 9. Caught in the act after a long day at work, Eric was exhausted. He loosened his tie as he walked up to his apartment door, ready to kick off his shoes and collapse into bed. But the moment he reached his door, he paused. The lights inside were on. His brows furrowed. Didn't I turn them off before leaving? A strange feeling crept over him. He took a deep breath, unlocked the door gently, and tiptoed inside. The apartment smelled delicious, like home-cooked food. His ears picked up soft movements from the kitchen. Heart pounding, he moved silently toward the sound. As he reached the doorway, he stopped. There, standing by the counter, was Tasha. She was humming softly, spooning food onto a plate, completely unaware of his presence. Damn it, Tasha, Eric blurted out, his voice louder than he intended. Tasha gasped, nearly dropping the plate. She spun around, pressing a hand to her chest. Oh my God, Eric. You scared me. Eric exhaled sharply, rubbing the back of his neck. I thought you left. She raised an eyebrow. How can I leave my love who just had an accident, she teased, walking up to him. Dinner is ready. Go get changed and come eat. Eric hesitated. Tasha, this isn't necessary. I told you I'm fine. The warmth in Tasha's expression faded slightly. She tilted her head, studying him. Something felt off. She set the plate down and walked closer. Eric, is something wrong? She asked gently. Aren't you happy to see me? Did I do something wrong? Eric clenched his jaw. He had spoken too harshly. Immediately, he softened his expression and reached for her hands. No, baby. I'm sorry. It's just the accident, the stress from work. And honestly, I don't want you overworking yourself. You should be resting, not worrying about me. Tasha sighed, her lips curving into a small smile. You're so sweet. But don't worry, I'm fine. And baby is fine. I'm only 3 months in, Eric. I can still do things for us. Eric nodded slowly, forcing a smile. Okay. You win. Good, she giggled. Now go change. Dinner is waiting. Later that night, dinner had been peaceful. They laughed, talked, and for a moment, Eric almost felt like a real boyfriend. Almost. By the time Tasha had fallen asleep, Eric's mind was already elsewhere. Sophia. Careful not to wake her, he slid out of bed and tiptoed to the bathroom, locking the door behind him. As soon as he was alone, he pulled out his phone and opened Snapchat. Eric, baby, I miss you so much. I wish I was in your arms right now. A few seconds later, Sophia replied. Sophia. I was just thinking about you. The bed feels so empty without you. Eric smirked, feeling a rush of excitement. Eric, I'd rather be there than here. I can't stop thinking about you. Your touch, your scent, the way you moan my name. Sophia, you're making me blush. They continued their private conversation, exchanging sweet words and playful teases. Eric was so lost in the moment that he didn't hear the soft creak of the bedroom door. Eric? His heart stopped. He turned his head slowly, and there stood Tasha, rubbing her eyes sleepily. What are you doing? She asked, her voice groggy. Eric quickly locked his phone and stuffed it into his pocket, putting on his best innocent face. I was using the toilet. Tasha squinted, her eyes scanning the room. Then she frowned. But the toilet seat is still covered. Eric's brain worked fast. Oh, I just finished, he said smoothly. Then I saw this funny video on TikTok and got distracted. Didn't want to wake you up. Tasha looked at him for a moment, then sighed. You and your TikTok, she mumbled, shaking her head. Eric smirked, stepping forward and taking her hands. Come on, let's go back to sleep, my love. She nodded sleepily, letting him lead her back to bed. As she snuggled into him, closing her eyes, Eric exhaled in relief. That was too close. But in the world of lies, he was living. Close calls were becoming a habit. Chapter 10. Suspicion and secrets. The morning sunlight filtered through the curtains as Eric buttoned up his shirt, fresh from the shower. He adjusted his collar, glancing at his reflection in the mirror when he heard the bed shift. Tasha stirred, stretching her arms before blinking up at him sleepily. But as soon as she realized what was happening, her brows furrowed. "You already showered?" she asked, her voice laced with surprise. Eric turned to her with a charming smile. "Yeah, baby. I didn't want to wake you." Tasha sat up, pushing her hair back. "That's strange. Usually, when I sleep over, we always shower together. Why didn't you wake me up?" Eric walked over and pressed a soft kiss to her cheek. "I wanted you to rest more. You stressed yourself yesterday, and I didn't want to disturb you." Tasha pulled back slightly, studying his face. "Eric, I told you, I'm just 3 months in. You don't have to treat me like I'm already 9 months pregnant." Eric chuckled, nodding. Okay, baby. I'll stop being overprotective." Tasha exhaled and smiled a little. But then Eric asked, "You're leaving today, right?" She narrowed her eyes slightly. "Since yesterday, you've been acting like you don't want me to stay." "I don't know why." Eric quickly shook his head. "No, baby, it's not that. It's just, you need to be careful with work. You can't keep taking days off over little things, especially now that you're pregnant. What if something big happens later? You should save your leave days." Tasha watched him for a long moment before sighing. "I already plan to go to work from here. So don't worry, I'm not staying longer than necessary." Eric forced a smile. "That's my girl." She rolled her eyes playfully and got up, heading toward the bathroom. But even as she walked away, a small part of her couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. At the office, Eric settled into his chair, pulling out his phone. "Eric, I'm sorry, baby. I slept off last night. That's why I didn't respond." He smirked slightly as he hit send, knowing Sophia would be waiting for his message. But before he could put his phone away, a voice made him jump. "Hey, buddy." Eric's hand shot up instinctively, flipping his phone over as Martin strolled up to his desk. Martin frowned, eyeing him suspiciously. "Dude, you've been acting weird since yesterday. Are you sure they took good care of you after the accident?" Eric forced a chuckle, leaning back in his chair. "Of course, man. I told you I'm fine. Just dealing with some personal stuff." Martin didn't look convinced. "What kind of personal stuff?" "Just things I need to settle," Eric said vaguely. "Nothing serious." Martin studied him for a long moment, then shrugged. "All right, man. If you say so." But as he walked away, he threw one last glance over his shoulder. Something wasn't adding up. At Eric's apartment, Tasha finished getting dressed, adjusting her coat as she looked around the apartment. Something was bothering her. She had been with Eric for years. She knew him, and the way he had been acting since yesterday. Distant, distracted. Something wasn't right. "Did I do something wrong?" she murmured to herself, frowning. She shook her head, pushing the thought aside. Maybe she was overthinking. With a deep sigh, she grabbed her bag, locked the door, and left. But in her heart, a seed of doubt had already been planted, to be continued.